You know, everyone thinks they know the story of the Garden of Eden. You've got Adam, Eve, a tricky serpent, and that famous apple. It's one of those stories we all just know. But what if the version we're all familiar with is just scratching the surface? What if there's a whole other history of Eden, one that's been hiding in plain sight? Okay, let's dive into this.
Right off the bat, let's just throw a wrench in one of the biggest assumptions. Pretty much all traditional scholarship places the garden somewhere in Mesopotamia, near the modern-day Euphrates River. But what if that's off by thousands of miles?
And it's not just about the where. What about the who? What if the first man and woman weren't just, well, the first man and woman? What if their real identities were way grander, stretching back long before they ever took a single step in that garden? To really get our heads around this different version of the story, we've got to start with the meaning of Eden itself. The source material tells us that the word means something like paradise or pleasure. It was designed to be absolutely perfect. But what does perfect really mean here? Now this is where it gets really fascinating. The idea here is that everything in the garden had this dual nature. According to the scripture, even the plants were created as spirits first, before they ever existed physically. Each one became a living soul, a perfect fusion of spirit and physical matter. This wasn't just some plot of land. It was a living, breathing, spiritual ecosystem. So let's turn to the main characters, Adam and Eve, and see how this all connects. Because in this telling of the story, their identities are so much more complex than just being the first mortals on Earth. Turns out, they had a whole history before their history even began. So this becomes the crucial question, right? If Adam wasn't just Adam, then who was he? What was his identity before he ever entered this perfect garden? And here it is, the big reveal. The source states that Adam was a pre-mortal being, a spirit who lived before coming to Earth, and that his name was Michael, the archangel. His very name, Michael, is said to mean who is as God. So we're not talking about some novice being chosen for a simple job here. This was a heavyweight from the spiritual realm.
And this really underscores how important he was. As Michael, he was the warrior prince, the one who led God's armies against Lucifer during that epic war in heaven. And the source is clear that Eve held a corresponding position of eminence. So when they entered the garden, it wasn't just two people. It was two of the Father's most noble servants taking on a brand new mission.
Okay, so now that we have kind of established who was in the garden, let's pivot to the second huge surprise in this account, where this all went down. All right, you might want to brace for this one a little bit. On the left, we've got the location everyone knows, Mesopotamia. But the source we're looking at makes a completely different claim. It places the Garden of Eden, believe it or not, smack dab in North America. I mean, listen to this quote from Brigham Young, one of the key leaders in the early Mormon faith. It is startlingly specific. The source claims the Garden of Eden was located in what is now Jackson County, Missouri. The implications of this are just huge. In this narrative, America isn't the new world at all. It's the old world, the literal cradle of the entire human race. So, picture this. We've got these pre-mortal champions in a perfect garden located in ancient America. What was life actually like for them? Well, according to this source, the physical laws that governed Eden were completely alien to the ones we know. This passage here lays out two really fundamental and, frankly, bizarre conditions of life in the garden. First, nothing died. Okay. But second, and this is maybe the most crucial part, there was no reproduction. They couldn't have children. They were commanded to multiply and replenish the earth. But in this innocent state, they literally couldn't do it. So what you have is this otherworldly state where nothing died, nothing got sick, nothing even aged. The source describes it almost like a form of suspended animation, where everything had the capacity to live forever, completely unchanging. It was perfect, sure, but it was also totally static. And all of this leads us to the final and maybe the most mind-bending part of this whole story. Why would you create a perfect, unchanging world and then put two beings in it who can't fulfill their most important commandment? What was the point of it all? Well, the answer, according to this source, is that the perfection was a setup. This sublime, incredible, paradisiacal state, it was only ever meant to be temporary. It was a stage, carefully set for one single, incredibly dramatic event. And there it is, the whole point.
The whole reason for this perfect place was so that it could be broken. Eden wasn't built to last forever. It was built to fall. Its entire purpose, its perfect static nature, was to be the starting point for introducing mortality, struggle, growth, and progress. The fall wasn't some tragic accident in paradise, it was the entire point of paradise.
And that really just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If this account is what you believe, it reframes the whole story of Eden. It's not a tragedy about loss, but a deliberate, necessary step in a much bigger plan. So it makes you wonder, what is the value of a perfect world that is designed to break? And what does that tell us about the nature of our own very imperfect one?